kids, this is Jan of Jan Hicks Creates, and we are back with lesson number 8, I believe, of my Basics of Cross Stitch series. Today I am going to be talking to you about metallics, how to use them, demonstrating how to use them, giving you some tips. You have heard that metallics are hard to use, and this is very true. Metallics are a pain in the butt, but I believe they are worth it. I have a couple things I want to show you here, but I think I'm going to show you them when we're turned around and you're looking down, some of my finished things, so you can really see up close what the metallics look like. And just, you know, the special touch they give your projects. So to show you that, yeah, they are difficult to work with, but they are worth it if you want, you know, that little sparkle and shine. But anyways, stay tuned. I'm gonna get everything turned around and we'll be right back. Okay, so you can see I have a variety of things out here on my work table. This is just the ones that I could find that I have. Of course, there's more metallic threads out there than this, but I would say I have some of the most popular here, plus a couple rather esoteric ones as well. So for the most part, metallic threads are always used to enhance, to add sparkle. They are very rarely, although, you know, rules are made to be broken, but they are very rarely the main thread that you use on a project. So in that case, you don't need a whole lot of them for the most part, depending on how big your project is, of course. And you just use little bits at a time here and there across your projects. Now, there are different, just like with every other thread out there, there are different weights, different types. We have different companies represented here. The ones that are most popular and most well known in the cross stitch world are, of course, the DMC and the Kreinik, which is what is on these spools here. Even within those, there's differences of how you use them in different weights, and I'm going to talk through all of those. So let's start with the DMC. DMC metallics. The general DMC metallics come in the basic metallic colors, silvers, golds, different darknesses of gold, and they are a 6-ply thread, like you can see here. And each individual ply is the same weight as 1 ply of regular cotton DMC. You use them exactly as you would the regular cotton DMC. Except that they're more of a pain to work with. You can see that each one of these, I'm trying to get it to focus here, each one of these individual strands is separating into its own 2-ply strand. That is what makes metallics such a nuisance, because they do have this tendency, most of them have a tendency to separate like this. And so you end up kind of fighting the 2 plies, trying to keep them even and trying to get them to lay nicely. Light Effects is the DMC kind of colored metallic. So they don't have their full range as Light Effects, of course, their full range of colors, but they do have a few colors. And again, it's the same. I don't have a strand sticking out here, but it's the same, 6-ply. It's kind of a rough feeling thread. In fact, the Light Effect feels slightly rougher to me than the regular metallic for, you know, whatever reason. These are all, you know, some form of basically polyamide plastic, basically, with metallic. DMC also has come out with Etoile, E-T-O-I-L-E. This is another 6-ply. Let's find the end here. This is another 6-ply. And it, again, it's made up of 2 strands twisted together. This seems to stay better together, better than the other metallics, I think because you have the cotton core that the metallic is twisted around. And so the metallic sticks better to the cotton, I think. This is made to substitute for blending filament. Blending filament is something that I'll talk about down here, where you hold a strand of the metallic together with a strand of a cotton thread. Again, DMC doesn't have their full range in the Etoile, but and their whatever color the thread is, the metallic matches it. So you're not going to have like a white metallic with a navy blue thread, but you can really see the sparkle. And I have not used these, but from the people that I've talked to, they say they are really easy to work with. And I'll talk a bit, I'll be showing you working with the blending filament, and we'll pull out a piece of the Etoile then and give this a try, and so we can get a feel for it. The other brand that is very popular is Kreinik. And Kreinik has so many different metallics, so many different options, a lot of different things for needlepoint, where you would use different weights. The main ones that you're going to see in cross stitch are the blending filament, which is very fine. And it is a kind of a core with a sparkle thread wrapped around it. So this again is a 2-ply. And again, because, I mean, there are designers that I've used that have charted for just using the blending filament on its own, but for the most part, as the name implies, blending filament is meant to be used in combination with another thread. So you hold it together with another thread. You might use 2-ply, 2 pieces of the blending filament with 1 piece of thread. You know, it just depends on the look that designer's going for. Next you have the very fine braid number 4. Trying to get that to focus. There we go. For the most part, and again, you can see this is a little thicker. I would say this is about the thickness of 2 strands of DMC. And for the most part, this is used on its own. You don't combine this with another thread. And then the weight of the metallic increases. This is their medium braid, number 16. And you can see that that is quite a bit thicker. If I can get this to behave. It's quite a bit thicker than the very fine braid. Now I have heard that Rainbow Gallery, which is the brand for these 2, that these are easier to work with than the Kreinik. I could see to a certain extent, although I don't know that I agree. I've used these, but I don't really remember. I wasn't thinking about the comparison all those many years ago. So this is their treasure braid. They have treasure braid, they have very fine treasure braid. This says it's petite. This is an old thing. They might have changed this to, they might have changed the name to be more in line with the Kreinik. I don't know. But this is kind of the weight of the very fine braid, the Kreinik number 4. This one, the Rainbow Gallery is actually flat and the Kreinik is more rounded. It could just be because of the way this is packaged, but for the most part, they're interchangeable. Now, like I said, people have said that the Rainbow Gallery is a good substitute, that it's a little bit easier to work with. But it's still, as you can see, is made up of different plies that have a tendency to come undone. And then the Gold Rush is kind of the equivalent of the Kreinik medium braid. But the Gold Rush is a chainette stitch. It's much floppier, it's much more pliable, it's softer to the touch. The Kreinik, I think, is a braided. You can see it's made up of a lot of strands there. that do have a tendency to come apart. And the Gold Rush, I think, is more, because it is a chainette stitch, I think it just holds together a little better. Let's see, what else do I want to say? Let's go over the other ones first. The ones that are less well known, that I just kind of brought out so that you'd be aware of them. This is from one of my Sulens kits. It's called Madeira Metallic, and it is very fine. Find the end of the very fine. It's a very fine thread. I would say it's equivalent to the Balget. It is a twisted 2-ply, but it does not come apart as easily. I don't know what they've done with the construction, but it's more, it just works better. Now, Madeira is more known for their embroidery, or their machine embroidery threads. This is number 40. I would assume that there's no reason you couldn't use any of them for hand embroidery as well, for cross stitch. It's just not as well known in the cross stitch world as it is in the machine embroidery world. But I would say it's certainly an option, and I did run this through fabric a number of times, and it still held together pretty well. I don't know whether I actually used it on a project yet. I think this might be one of the kits that I got that I never used. And the same with this. So this is the Japan Gold, the Japan thread. Again, Kreinik, number 7, Japan thread. Japan thread is a much thicker, much sturdier, and you don't usually use Japan thread to stitch with. Japan thread is used in gold work, often for couching, and couching is a technique where you, get these in here, where you lay your thread on the fabric and then kind of whip stitch over it with another thread, often a coordinating or a contrasting thread, to attach it to the fabric that way. So Japan threads are often very luxurious looking. So I want to do some stitching with some of these so you get a feel for how they act. I already have the Balget here started. I have it stranded with one strand of cotton of DMC. It's going to be hard to kind of see it on this white cloth. I realize this is my poor piece of Ada that is being used for everything that got bled on last week. But you can see that there's the strand of the blending filament next to the strand of the cotton floss. And here's the end. Now, one of the things that happens with the metallics in general is that they split as you're stitching, and you can see there, see that loop? They do not lay well with the cotton. So you're constantly having to readjust, pull it down, and you don't have to. I just did these stitches singly. You don't have to do that. They also have a tendency to want to slip out of the needle, so you have to kind of pay attention to that. One of the other things is the eye of the needle can often, degrade isn't the right word, but wear through the metallic thread quicker. So there's the loops on the bottom that I wasn't pulling tight, so I need to pull that tight. It's just, and look, see the Balget slipped out of the needle already. It's a pain. Now, oftentimes, because the eye of the needle does have a tendency to eat at the metallic thread more than it does the cotton, you want to work at the end of the thread. And of course, that leads to the thread slipping out of the needle more easily. I am going to show you a trick here very shortly on how to prevent that from happening. Now, that is why, though, DMC came up with this Etoile thread, so you don't have the hassle of holding those two together. I'm going to go ahead, and all of the annoyances that go with working with Ballet. So I'm going to just cut off a small piece here. I'm going to get a couple of lengths of this, and you just work with it the same way you do the regular cotton thread. I'm just going to take that out, thread this through. I need to sit down and do this. And I'm not going to do anything fancy here as far as starting and stopping. Just want to show you what it looks like. So again, you don't have to worry about doing individual stitches if you want to. If that's what the pattern seems to call for, you certainly can. But as you can see, you don't have any of the separating of the strands like you did with the cotton and the Ballet. Everything is laying much nicer. I do have my aught light shining on here. It's another gray day here. I hope it's good enough light to see, but without it being too glary. So, much easier. Just that little tiny bit of sparkle, which is the same thing the Ballet gives you. But the Etoile is definitely much easier. So I would say if there is an Etoile color that works for your palette, even if it might not be the exact color that the designer is calling for, I would see if you could find one of these to substitute. I think the lack of headache is worth it. And you can see the numbering system for these are the same as for the DMC. So 823 is the dark navy blue. There's just a C in front of it for this particular type of thread. So, highly recommend that. Now, a tip. So like I said, for the most part, whenever you're working with these, and of course, all that ring around the rosy thing makes it a little bit annoying too. But when you're working with the metallics, it starts to separate pretty much as soon as you cut off the piece. You want to kind of keep the needle towards the end of the thread so that it's only eating up, it's only debriding that one area of the metallic, because as you move it, if you have it down here farther and as you move it up, each one of those areas where the eye is just gets kind of eaten away. An alternative, and again, because if you do that, then you have more of a risk of the thread slipping out of the needle, right? Which is kind of an annoyance. So, one tip, if the designer wants you to work with 2 strands, we're going to kind of almost do a loop start, but in this case, instead of the loop being attached to the thread, the loop is going to be attached to the needle. So I threaded the 2 ends, I've doubled the thread, and I've threaded the 2 ends through the needle. I'm going to pull the thread down, and it's hard to see with all these curls in the thread. I'm going to pull it down. so that the loop is here, the ends are down here in my pinky, and here's the needle. And I'm just gonna take that needle and take it like just through the loop, just like that, and pull down. And you can see it makes that little loop right on the needle. And so the thread is now attached. It's not coming off the needle. Like I said, this is basically the same as a loop start, except you're doing the loop on the needle and not on the fabric. And so then you start it the same way, any old way you want. The only difference, if I can find the hole here, the only difference is you are not going to be moving the needle. Hold on. You're not going to be moving the needle up your thread. All right, so let me catch that. And again, this is one of the reasons why metallics are annoying, because of all those loops. See? But my thread isn't coming out of the needle. All right, so this time I'm kind of holding those loops to manage it better so they don't get all twisted and knotted on each other. And again, you're just gonna stitch with it like you do regular floss. And I'm just holding it down so that it doesn't get all tangled. Kind of catch it in the back with my finger too. This is a really pretty color of gold. It's kind of an antique gold, not real shiny. What number is this? This is the numbering system, by the way, 002V. So the designer will put that on their pattern as the color number that you need to look for. And the V stands for, I think, the very fine braid. 202HL, HL stands for high luster. They have so many different things. But if you're going to a needlework store to buy them, the people working there will be able to help you with all that. All right, so then you say, well, Jan, what do you do when you get to the end? Because you can't just slip the needle off, right? You got to cut the thread. So you've worked down, you know, close to the end, and you've threaded your needle underneath the other stitches. You got to cut it off. And then you got to get that little bit off of the needle. Now, I hear you saying, but Jan, what if I only need to use one strand? I can't, how do I loop it with one strand? Let's see, I've actually never done this. This is something I was thinking about in the shower. I'm gonna go ahead and still put both of my, let me think, put both of my strands through the needle. Take the needle up towards the loop. And then, let's see, I want to pull one of them up so that there's still a loop. I'm going to have to do some manipulating here so that there's still a loop, but I just have one working strand. Move this up. Pull that up, move this up, pull that up. Okay, so now I have my one working strand. I still have a loop, and I have the other end of the thread as a tail. So hold on to that so it doesn't slip. Well, I don't have enough hands. Need to have this loop long enough that I can get it over the needle. So it goes over the needle, pull it down, and so yeah, there you have it. You have your one strand to work with, a little bit of a tail, you still have that loop on there, so that's not going anywhere. And I could do this with the Ballet as well, to have the strand of the DMC, or the strand of the cotton and the strand of the Ballet, and that helps some. So that's kind of how you corral that a little bit. Now, I need to get this off again. I'm just going to pull this one off instead of cutting it. I'm going to try and pull it off. Maybe I'm not going to pull it off. There we go. All right. This would be too thick to work with on here, so I'm not going to play with that one. Let's play with the Rainbow Gallery a bit. Cut off a thread. And like I said, that's really fraying there, so I'm actually just going to cut off that end to make it easier to thread the needle, so I don't have all those frayed ends I have to get through there, even though this is a really big eye. Pull that down, put the needle through the loop, have it attached on there. Now the trick with looping that on the needle really helps to keep it, you know, much more aligned. I think because this is a flatter, not only is it a flatter thread, but since it's stored flat, it doesn't have all the loop-de-loops like the Kreinik on the spools. So that might be one reason why the Rainbow Gallery is easier to work with. And again, I don't have to worry about the thread abriding the needle harming the thread. You know, I don't have to worry about having to keep move the. And again, because I have the thread looped on the needle, I don't have to worry about moving the needle up the thread. I don't have to worry about it wearing out the thread. You know, it's just where it is. So that's the Rainbow Gallery. And that is a little bit thinner. The two strands of this went through the fabric, and the knot on the needle went through the fabric a little bit easier than the number 4 braid. So it is a little bit thinner than the number 4 braid of the Kreinik. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Cut that off. Take this off. I'm going to have so many little strands laying around here. All right, there's that. Let us try, okay, so this is the light effect, and I want to thank Christina, one of my stitchy friends here on the island, for letting me borrow her light effects. I don't actually have any. So DMC Metallics, DMC light effects. I am going to, the DMC Metallics are basically the same as the Kreinik Metallic as far as the difficulty of use, the pain in the butt of use. I'm going to give the light effects a try. Like I said, it's a little bit stiffer, rougher feeling than even the DMC Metallics, and certainly of these other ones. It has a very tight looking twist to it. Can you see that in the camera? can really see the reflection of the metallic on it, the shiny stuff. I'm going to, white on white will be good, right? I think I'm just going to use one strand with the needle just anywhere on the thread, on the length of the floss, so you can get a feel for what I mean. If it'll do it. I don't know whether it'll do it. I did the X's on the wrong side. Why didn't you guys tell me that? Oh well. It's like, why does that look so strange? Didn't I complete the X's? I did it on the other side. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm gonna just go down over here. See what we think about using this. Since I haven't used light effects before, this will be a good test for me to see how it compares to the other. And I'm only doing one strand because otherwise I would do the 2 strands and lock it on the needle, and I don't want to do that. I could do the loop start too, but oh well, I've already started. It definitely has a rougher pull feeling of pulling through the fabric. So I could say that it will probably, and of course, as you build up stitches, usually you're doing the metallic after you've done all your other cross stitch. And so you're working amongst all the other stitches. And so I could see that this would kind of wear it down more. One of the things that doesn't happen as much with these other metallics as with the Bolger is because the Bolger is such a loosely twisted thread, whenever you're working with it, one of the strands has a tendency to ride up on the other one, so you get things like this in your stitching. See how that's all kind of, what would I call that, bumpied out there? And yeah, that happens a lot when you're working with Bolger. These other metallics don't do that as much from what I can see, especially if you do that loop start on your needle. They have a tendency to stay put more. They do have a tendency though to, can you see, let me see, where's my camera? Can you see that there? To not stay down when you pull it through, you know, they don't kind of stay in place. So you've got to make sure you are pulling it completely through. And there it's riding up again. Whenever you're stitching, you want to make sure that your stitches are all in place nicely. Did I already do that? Finish that one? I don't know. Looks like I did. Anyway. Whenever you're stitching though amongst all the other stitches, your stitches will stay down more. They won't have that tendency to ride back up because the other stitches are going to help to keep them in place. All right, so that is the light effects. Again, thank you, Christina, for letting me play with your skein here a bit. So let's look at what's on the needle. Of course, that wasn't very many stitches, but for the most part, this seems to handle the wear and tear of the needle more than other metallics, certainly better than I've seen the Kreinik do. But again, 3 stitches isn't very much. So your mileage may vary. I would still recommend doing that loop start though, just to be safe. All right, so I think that's really all I wanted to show you as far as working with the metallics and how they act or how they misbehave often. let me show you some of the effects. So having said that, yes, they take some special care. Yes, some of them can be a pain. The correct needle, the correct fabric all helps. Special tricks help. So then your question is it worth it? And I would say unequivocally, yes. So this is a piece that I did, a counted embroidery piece, counted canvas piece I did many years ago. I actually took a class for this, one of the stitching stores in Maryland. And this one uses the thicker braid, so it's going to be using the medium braid, the number 16. And as I said, in general, this is too big to use in cross stitch. So this is where you're going to see that in more of the needle point side of things, the counted canvas side of things. So you can see that provides a really nice outline amongst all of those pieces. That the bell pull I showed you in my floss tube video the other day uses a lot of metallics. Like I said, this is a Sue Lentz piece. I believe these really thin ones are the Balget used by itself. It's the same with these outlines here, used to do another layer of stitching over top of the satin stitch here to add some extra dimension. These are 2 strands in here, these crosses that are going over the intersections of the threads. Let's see, I don't think there's actually any Balget held with a floss on this one, but there is on this. So this is a Just Nan piece that I did many moons ago. And you can see down here the little bird, the bird's going across here. It's actually, I believe, this Balget intertwined, held with the cream DMC. Can you see the sparkle in that at all? I don't know whether you even can. So it is very subtle. In fact, I think this is 2 strands of the DMC with 1 of the Balget. So that's why substituting it with the Etoile, I think you would get the same effect much easier. But this is metallic here, this little star. I have eyelets here that are done in the metallics. An outline here. Again, these are all very thin, so I think these are all done with the Balgets. The cream here also has the Balget in it. And again, I just don't know if the camera's picking that up. Maybe a little bit. So yeah, is it a lot? Is it in your face glitter? No. There are certainly some projects out there that are more bold with their metallics, but I think it is worth the extra effort to add that extra little touch to some of your pieces. Not all of them. Yeah, there may be some that call for metallic that you just think, nah, not worth it. Not worth the hassle. And that's fine. But I encourage you to give it a try. I hope this has been helpful. I would say your general craft store is going to carry the DMC metallics. They also carry the light effects. Some of them are starting to carry the Etoile. Cross stitch stores carry all of these as well. I would say the finer neat, and of course the cross stitch stores carry the Krynic, the more general Krynic. You can find some of it in the big box stores, but not as much. The needlepoint stores are where you're going to find the Rainbow Gallery products. Some cross stitch stores will carry Rainbow Gallery, but not a whole lot. Of course, I don't know all the cross stitch stores, so what do I know? But there are more specialty stores, like needlepoint stores, that carry more of a selection if you want to play more. So yeah, just look and see what's out there. And I do encourage you to play and get a feel for them before you don't know if you don't try. So I hope I haven't intimidated you. I hope I've given you some good tips. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. I will talk to you again next Monday. I'm not sure if I'll be ready to do the silk video next Monday, but I am gathering silks. So stay tuned.